Teenagers who have sex and do drugs aren't the only thing that are killed by horror films. Originality seems pretty dead too, as Hollywood is remaking every horror franchise they can get a hold of. And while I like the remake, it kills me to say that Evil Dead is included on that list too. The big difference being that audiences are actually clamoring for more Evil Dead, so give us more. While at the same time, there are franchises that are spawning terrible remakes and pointless sequel after sequel. So, in honor of the Evil Dead reaching a new audience, let's take a look at the horror films that weren't so prolific. It's the top 5 horror films that lived way too long in this, The Real School Countdown. Number 5, Leprechaun. While every other franchise on this list starts out strong, Leprechaun falls into the why the hell did they make it in the first place category. And while several subpar horror films get made with a bizarre premise and an even more ludicrous movie monster, very few spawn 5 sequels. I can get past these films being Irish stereotypes. I can even get past one of them being in the hood. What I hate most about these films is that Warwick Davis is in them. An actor who's been in Star Wars, Harry Potter, and my personal favorite, Willow, has sullied an otherwise brilliant and stereotype-free career. Number 4, Final Destination. There were some moments of absolute brilliance and originality, especially in the first part of this franchise. What I really thought was genius was making Death the antagonist. This unseen force is the movie monster, and it weaves its way towards its victim. Another great aspect of this franchise is the actors who got exposure in their young career by being in these films, including Seann William Scott, Ali Larter, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. But what really worked as a villain in the first film became increasingly complex, as the characters would die in ludicrous Rube Goldberg machines. And as the sequels went on, not only do you lose credibility by calling the 4th installment The Final Destination, and then releasing Final Destination 5, but the deaths became just laughable. One thing I learned by watching these films is Death is just a sadistic dickhead. I mean, wouldn't a heart attack just be enough? Number 3, Scream. Many of my viewers know that Kevin Williamson's brilliant self-satirical script is the reason I got into film in the first place. And Scream 2 was just as good. A young Timothy Olyphant, a who's who of 90s young actors, most of who didn't make it in the 21st century. Guess their characters weren't the only thing that died. But after the second installment, the charm had worn off, especially when there was a different writer for Scream 3 and terrible villains for 3 and 4. By the time Scream 4 rolled around, I thought it was too little, too late, and all the clever touches were just played out. Number 2, Saw. This franchise is the very definition of one-hit wonder. Oh, there's no denying that they made a crap load of money off of these films. But there was something about the very first Saw, and only the first Saw. Not only was it the film that popularized a new subgenre of horror, but the original had one of the greatest twist endings ever in a horror film. It would seem that unfortunately, Leigh Whannell, the writer of the original and one of the stars of the first installment, well, ran out of ideas after Saw. As soon as he could, he really just sold out the franchise, and as a result, the mythology became beyond convoluted. And after that, his ideas weren't as good as his first, with follow-up films like Dead Silence and Insidious. There's actually a term for that. Peaking at your first film and then forcing twists on all the others is called Shyamalaning. Number 1, Psycho. How many of you knew there were 3 sequels to Psycho and that Vince Vaughn shot-for-shot remake? I cannot even fathom what they were thinking, not only sullying the great genius of Alfred Hitchcock, but making the sequel 23 years later? I felt a piece of me die every time I saw Anthony Perkins making one of these. Hollywood, while it may have worked occasionally, leave a good thing alone. Those sequels were just insulting, not only to the brilliance of the original film, but your intelligence as well. Agree or disagree with the list? Leave your picks for the top 5 in the comment section below. So maybe go check out some of those sequels you didn't know about. But until then, and until next time, school's out.